Why do you feel tired all the time? Why can't you feel adequately rested even if you had a good sleep that day, on the weekend, or even on vacation? Why do you feel exhausted when you come home from your desk job, even though your health, blood values, and everything are fine? I think this is a situation that billions of people around the world are currently experiencing and cannot solve. We eat properly, but it doesn't cut it. We take supplements, and it's not enough. So what's the reason for this, bro? The answer is simple. It's you. You wake up in the morning, say it's going to be a great Monday, and go to work. But when it's only 3 o'clock, your battery runs out. The next day at 2:30, the next day at 2, the next day at 1, and on Friday, you start the day with a messy head. When you go online and look, you come across countless reasons, from those who say you worry too much about everything, to those who say you have insomnia, to those who say Mercury retrograde has ruined you, to those who say gas is being released from airplane exhausts onto cities that is slowly killing humanity. It makes you even worse. The media and industry, aware of your poor performance, convince you that you can never start the day without buying their own worthless coffee. And even at your young age, you can only survive an office day by relying on tea and coffee all day long, and energy drinks when that is not enough. Do you think this is a sustainable lifestyle? Of course not. That's why, after a while, you start living with psychological pills and supplements. And all the money you make goes back into the pockets of the industry that doesn't clearly tell you the truth when they say it was coffee or pills. So how will this vicious circle end? How do you get out of this hell when the exact source of the problem is not clear? The answer is simple. By reading the works of scientists who were able to remain free despite all the pressure. For those who say, "I don't have time, friend," fortunately, there is a way to find the truth, right? Early 1970s. While the American lifestyle was developing at full speed, people were heading towards the peak of consumption and production with new technologies and opportunities. Plazas were rising in cities, factories were producing all kinds of products, and computers, a new technology, were entering every aspect of people's lives. Hundreds of different clothing stores, thousands of different restaurants, and 10 different channels on television to choose from. Don't laugh. This is actually an important detail. You will soon understand. Thanks to all these innovations, the American people and later the whole world were introduced to this innovation, unlimited choice. However, while all this growth is taking place in this capital paradise, an increase in the consumption of psychological drugs also begins to be observed. And this topic intrigues John Olney, a neuroscientist. Olney, who conducts research on modern living conditions and the brain's response to them, introduces the concept called excitotoxicity into our lives for the first time in history, and introduces large masses to glutamate, a neurotransmitter secreted by our brain. Glutamate, which is by far the neurotransmitter your brain uses most intensively, is a very important chemical that allows the brain to transfer this data to almost every decision you make. But glutamate has another unknown effect. As John Olson mentioned in his machines, if there is excessive glutamate accumulation, your life, to put it simply, is slipping. Why? Because this indispensable substance that your brain uses for its own electrical communication network also kills it. Our ancestors have a nice saying, "Few decisions, more harm." This is actually exactly the main subject of our video. Let's take a quick time travel through human history. Tens of thousands of years ago, according to the history we know, our ancestors were primitive Stone Age people who lived in small groups in caves or very simple structures, and their only goal was to survive. They would get up in the morning, leave the cave, while the forager group was collecting fruits and vegetables. The hunters would go hunting and hunt all day, then come to the fire in the evening, eat, and go to bed. The next day is the same again, and then hundreds of years pass. Look, pay attention to how simple life is, isn't it? Wake up, stay dry and warm, eat, breed, and go to bed. Later, with the invention of the wheel, the use of metals, etc., humanity began to develop, and its lifestyle began to deepen. We have now started to live in larger groups in villages, rather than caves, and daily tasks have increased a little more than before. As a result, the things you will think about and the choices you will make during the day will increase with the maintenance of the house, fuel supply, various agricultural and hunting ventures, and animal husbandry. In other words, the hippocampus, which is the memory part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is the center of attention, decision-making and mental control, the basal ganglia associated with movement and reward system, and the amygdala, which manages emotional responses, have now started to work even harder and produce signals. And remember, one of the main systems that carries these signals is glutamates. Then humans develop, we live in larger cities, in larger communities. The things that need to be controlled, learned and maintained increase 1,000-fold compared to our cave-age ancestors, and life becomes more complicated. Afterwards, with the Industrial Revolution and modern times, the rope ends. Let's make a simple comparison. While our ancestors 20,000 years ago woke up in the morning and generally only thought about finding food for the evening, today you are wondering whether you should mix raw seeds and almond milk for breakfast, or eat different combinations of oats, bananas, and eggs. I'm not even counting lunch and dinner. Actually, I had the artificial intelligence count it. The average person thinks of 200 different combinations of food ingredients from morning to evening. This is an incredible figure. And remember, your brain releases glutamate for every thought and decision. Now, when you think about what to wear, what jewelry to wear, the now complex Excel tables at work, PowerPoint presentations, writing thousands of lines of code, and dozens of decisions, your brain starts to turn into a glutamate swamp. As you leave work and walk home, thousands of advertisements are constantly sending messages to your brain. It doesn't end. You come home tired, lie down on the sofa, and with the television on in the background, which nowadays has tens of thousands of channels and options such as Media E. You do this movement called doom scrolling on your phone with your hand. You think you are resting and clearing your mind, but with every movement, your brain sends a signal. More importantly, not just one part of your brain is firing, but all of them, especially the prefrontal cortex. This includes releasing dopamine. Dopamine is one of the unique hormones and neurotransmitters of our brain. And every time you make that movement, it is secreted more or less, because the brain wonders what happens next. Especially if something is out of your field of interest, you release even more dopamine. Then this dopamine begins to numb you in microdoses. Look, this has no difference with substance addiction. In one case, you experience an intense amount of this pleasure and its collapse is sudden. In the other one, you experience this pleasure in microdoses for hours, and it becomes your lifestyle. That's why you don't realize that hours have passed while you're scrolling the screen idly. People design those software in the light of this information. Remember, if a product is free, you are actually the product. They will definitely exploit you in some way. So, what do you think your brain has become after experiencing tens of thousands of neural bombardments directly, indirectly, or completely subconsciously, starting from the morning? By the way, on average, a working person makes 35,000 decisions in a day. Consider that this does not even include external stimulation. After all this whirlwind of decisions, your nerve endings become clogged with glutamate. I didn't say this just for fun. It gets really clogged, and the brain's signal transmission begins to deteriorate. As a side effect, your brain forces you to sleep to avoid burning out your circuits. Otherwise, since this accumulation will start to burn nerves and kill cells, you will start to experience diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in the long run. Anyway, thank God I have a bed so I can sleep for 8 hours and reset myself. Otherwise, if you say that my life was going to change and I didn't realize it, unfortunately, you are wrong again. Because you probably don't realize it, but your life has already started to slip. When your brain, which has become glutamate soup, goes into sleep mode, it begins to clear quickly, especially during the deep sleep phase. Cleansing mechanisms, such as the glymphatic system and astroacids, clean the accumulated glutamate and rearrange synaptic connections. And for this cleaning, you need to sleep for at least 7 to 9 hours. Well, you slept well. Are the problems over? Of course not. Remember, at the beginning of the video, I said that you are actually the source of the problem. More precisely, It is your lifestyle that you have not changed. Why? Let me explain. Let's say your maximum glutamate limit before your brain becomes soup is 100 units. Of course, I give the numbers as an example. You woke up in the morning. I'm going to assume you're starting from scratch, like a newborn baby. You woke up. When you say wash your face, brush your teeth, take a shower, choose a dress, choose breakfast, prepare your bag, you have already made hundreds of decisions. And let's say glutamate is 20. You drove to work. During that time, you made 1,000 big and small decisions in traffic. You are 40. You started work. After presentations, reports, lunch decisions, you turned 80, and slowly a laziness and absent-mindedness began to set in. Around 3 o'clock. The reason for this fatigue is that your brain secretes a sleep-regulating chemical called adenosine to balance the excessive accumulation of glutamate. In other words, your brain gives the message that let's get some rest or there will be trouble. But of course, sleeping is not possible. Fortunately, we have coffee, which is depicted in Hollywood movies and TV series as if we would die if we didn't drink it, or we would be excluded from society. And then your colleague immediately gives you a huge glass of coffee. Honey says you will open up. Actually, it's not a lie. The caffeine in coffee prevents the accumulation of adenosine for a while. Look, I didn't say secretion, I said accumulation. This is a subtle point. Because while caffeine holds adenosine like a dam wall, the body continues to secrete and accumulate it in the background. And when the effect of caffeine wears off, as if the dam had burst, all that accumulated adenosine flows into the brain receptors in such a way that you leak with your head left and right, either at the desk or on the bus. When you come home, your glutamate level has already increased to 150. When dinner options, what to watch on TV options, and endless social media browsing are added, the maximum limit of 100 has already increased to 200. Now remember that even if you sleep for 7 to 9 hours, the body can clear 100 units. So what happened then? The next day, you automatically started your day at the maximum level of 100 units. So you lost the race from the very beginning. You finished the day with more coffee, more stimulants. You come home, level is 350. You go to bed, sleep, and start with 250 the next morning. And because of your wrong lifestyle, glutamate in your brain never drops to 0 anymore. And even if you sleep or don't work, you constantly feel tired and exhausted. Have you ever understood what kind of vicious circle you have fallen into? And this vicious circle will slowly lead you towards depression, anxiety disorders, and God forbid, brain damage when you get older. Thank you, brother. Those who say we had a little morale and you finished that should not immediately lower their sails. First, I showed you your enemy. Now, I'll show you how to defeat him. We all have to work, and there is a lifestyle brought by modern times. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go to the mountains and herd sheep. There are realities of life, I accept that. I will explain what we can do with what we can under these conditions. Now, first of all, many people seriously misunderstand sleep. You need to start by fixing this. The human body has biological clocks, and this clock has developed itself with the light and dark cycle as a result of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and adaptation. When the sun rises, we work. When it sets, it gets dark, and we go to bed. That's basically it. But now it's night. There is no such thing as darkness anymore. Your house is bright, and the streets are not bright enough. We all have large screen televisions that shine like the moon at home, and phones that shine in our hands. All of these disrupt the biological clock and prevent the body from entering the sleep cycle. That's why we stare at these screens until 2 or 3 a.m., thinking we can't sleep. It needs to be demolished first. At dusk, our body begins to secrete melatonin, a very important hormone. In order not to disrupt the secretion of this hormone, you should leave off the phone or television after 10 p.m. And you need to go to bed no later than 11, 12 o'clock, friends. There is no need to be a night owl. Your health is more valuable. So, get rid of artificial light sources an hour before bed. Even put your phone in eye protection shield mode when it gets dark so that its damage is reduced. In your home, choose indirect yellow dim lights instead of lights shining like the sun on the ceiling. Spend the last hour before bed reading a book. You will see that you will feel sleepy immediately. And when you feel sleepy, go to bed without looking at your phone again. Do not have an artificial light source in your room. This way, your brain stays clearer in the morning. Add foods such as blackberries and blueberries, which are strong antioxidants, to your breakfast. These help reduce excess glutamate. Choose lunches rich in omega-3, found in walnuts, centipedes, and fish. And sprinkle the natural magnesium found in spinach, almonds, and pumpkin seeds into your snacks. Be careful not to get stuck on your phone and dive into social media during the day. You are already working, but when you add the dopamine secreted by the brain due to social media, you start to get confused. Break yourself out of this vicious death scroll cycle. Do not try to overcome the heaviness that weighs you down in the afternoon by drinking coffee. Look, friends, coffee is one of the biggest insults to humanity in the modern age, and it destroys people's nervous systems. Okay, we understand 1 glass a day. There's nothing wrong with that, but drinking too much is crazy. Drink green tea instead. The theanine it contains both calms you and increases alertness. Theobromine in dark chocolate gives energy to the brain. A green apple refreshes you with the natural sugar and acid it contains. Don't say, "I can't wake up without coffee, I'll die." It happens because you are addicted to it, and coffee chains are making billions thanks to you. Give the body 2 weeks to get rid of that addiction. Look, you won't be able to pick up any coffee after that. In addition, let artificial intelligence handle unnecessary decision mechanisms during the day. For example, tell ChatGPT to plan what I will wear for 3 days in accordance with such and such criteria. Instead of choosing 1,000 channels on TV in the evening, suggest me a movie and watch it. I repeat, put down that phone. Set limits for yourself with a timer so you don't spend hours browsing social media without realizing it. And most importantly, start meditating immediately. Know that adenosine is secreted when you feel sleepy during the day. Go to a corner and do the meditation that I taught you in my meditation and chakras video for 15 minutes. You will be like a stapler. When you get home in the evening, do the other meditations in the videos for 15 minutes or half an hour. These begin to quickly clear the accumulated glutamate in your brain. And if you manage to make these your standard of living, you will gradually erase and reset those accumulated glutamates. And that fatigue that clouds your mind, that exhaustion that weighs you down and makes you feel sick, begins to go away. You start sleeping better at night and working better in the morning. Please take this video into consideration, friends. It always saddens me to see people collapse like zombies, even when I go to work in the morning. And ordinary companies are trying to explain your situation by selling you worthless coffees and antidepressants. Don't let them get rich selling supplement pills. Science tells us what the problem is. It tells us what we should do. Artificial intelligence helps us reduce the daily burden. Please use these and save your life. Otherwise, those companies will continue to exploit you and make you sick until the last penny in your pocket. I hope this video helped you understand your problem and solve it. Please share this around you so that as many people as possible can learn about it. I hope other science pages will also touch upon this subject and it will reach millions. In this way, I'm sure many people can at least find an answer to the question, is there something wrong with me? What is my problem? Thank you all for watching. You can continue to accompany me on my journey by subscribing to the channel. Take care until we see you next week. Stay healthy.